Hi, my name is Dan Behringer, and over the next few minutes, we're going to go through Introduction to Agile Concepts. Now, you may be new to the whole idea of Agile, or you may be planning to get your PMP, preferably with Projects by Design, and you are looking for some understanding of Agile because you've heard that this has become a major component within the exam content. That is true starting January 2nd, 2021. So in preparation of taking your PMP exam prep course, or just in research that you may be doing, I'd like to give you an overview of what Agile is all about. We're going to start with covering the various topics that we'll go over in the next couple of videos. The first of those topics is Agile. What's the big deal? Now, maybe you've seen the Kanban board or the task board as it may be called, and moving work through its various steps or statuses, if you will. That is just one component of Agile. Agile is much bigger than that. So what we want to do is take a look at why Agile exists in the first place. Then we'll go through the Agile mindset, the core values, and the principles. Now, this is primarily based upon the Scrum Guide that's published by Scrum Alliance. You're like, well, Dan, aren't you an authorized training partner with Project Management Institute as with Projects by Design? That is true. We are an authorized training partner of the Project Management Institute. Now, PMI also has a concept, or a framework, I should say, called Disciplined Agile. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how Disciplined Agile is being brought into the certification journey within Project Management Institute. The reason why is because Agile is the appropriate method and set of practices depending on the situation. Not all situations, though. Choice is good, as we like to say. So we'll talk about both the Agile perspective from the Scrum Guide, which the PMI recognizes as a good reference for running a Scrum. In addition, we'll talk about Disciplined Agile and how that framework can help kind of understand how Agile fits from the larger enterprise perspective. After we go through the Agile mindset, core values, and principles, we're then going to talk about the Scrum. The Scrum is the centerpiece of the Agile team and how they interact with the customer and how they deliver working software. Just an overview of the Scrum and some of the principles involved with that. Then next, we'll go into Agile roles. There are 3 primary roles in the Scrum as defined by the Scrum Alliance or the Scrum Guide, but we're going to also talk about other Agile approaches, including Disciplined Agile once again, and the roles associated with those. Then we're going to finish off with an introduction to Agile planning. This is where it's going to fold together with the content for the PMP exam prep course. So, first of all, let's talk about Agile. What's the big deal? Well, if we think about how organizations work, we find that organizations want to do things that are routine. We want to do things that are routine because we want to make sure that we are efficiently delivering our products, services, or results to our customers. And in delivering those, the more we can optimize the routine nature of what we do, the more value we can get or return on investment. So organizations want to be routine. However, there's things that we come across that we have less experience or skills in doing. Those things are disruptive in nature. When we have less experience, it tends towards a chaotic environment. Likewise, those things that are unique to us, a unique technology, a unique business situation, a new product, for example, that also is disruptive. So the more unique something is that we're facing, the more disruptive or chaotic it's going to be. If we understand projects are naturally disruptive simply because by definition, projects deliver unique product, services, and results, or results, I should say. Therefore, we can see that depending on the experience level and the uniqueness of what we're going to try to deliver, each and every project falls somewhere within that gap between routine and chaos. Now, that's not where we want to leave things. We want to deliver our projects so that it can be routinely delivered to the customer, which maximizes the return on investment. So in other words, for value to be realized, the project deliverables must be made routine. We want to transition from that kind of chaotic state where we get the experience, we understand the uniqueness so that we can drive towards routine. And optimization of the value is determined at the rate at which it becomes routine. The more effective our project delivery is, the more satisfied the customer becomes, and the customer satisfaction can then even be improved as we do it over and over again and optimize. So these two variables, kind of the uniqueness and the experience that we have and the skill sets that we have as an organization, help us to drive our projects deliverables towards routine. And again, it's all based upon how unique that project may be. Every project that we do has a different level of uniqueness and a different level of experience the organization has to deliver. So when projects involve fairly routine deliverables, they can be planned more efficiently. In other words, we can describe what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how much it's going to cost with greater certainty because it is closer to routine. However, the more uniqueness you have to a project, we're probably going to have to adapt. That's because we're going to need to learn what it is that is going to maximize that value. In other words, we want to set a set of priorities that we are going to work down in order to answer those questions of what truly has the most value. So to attempt to plan in detail with a high degree of uniqueness and also without your experience, that can be very time consuming. Why try to state exactly what you think you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how much it's going to cost with a high degree of certainty when you don't even know what the customer values? So when we talk about projects where there is a high degree of routineness associated, we're simply doing the same thing that we've done before, a network refresh or a building that we're building and maybe a different set of requirements, but the construction crew is very experienced at it and they've done this sort of building before. These things are routine, and more routine, I should say, and therefore we can take that plan-driven approach. A plan-driven approach means we're going to state with a high degree of certainty at the very beginning of what we're going to do, what is going to happen, when it's going to happen, and how much it's going to cost. For all those other areas where projects cannot be found, routine, or project deliverables aren't routine, and we're going to have to learn as we go, we're going to take an adaptive approach. That adaptive approach is when we are going to adapt to what we learn as we deliver. So learning is a very key component to the adaptive approach. The way we learn is going to change depending on how we want to drive that work. This leads us to essentially 4 different project delivery life cycles. The 4 life cycles are predictive, iterative, incremental, and agile, which is the primary focus of the introduction to this video. But before we can truly understand agile, let's take a look at predictive, iterative, and incremental. In predictive, that is the most plan-driven situation you can find. That's because there are dependencies with the deliverables. When we have dependencies that have to be managed very closely, we're going to have to direct the work at the right time with the right people in order to make sure those dependencies are satisfied. We also want to forecast what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how much it's going to cost. And as I mentioned, we're going to have to direct the project team in order to make sure that that plan-driven approach is executed the most efficiently that it can. Again, understanding that the team probably is not too far out of their routine when they deliver. With iterative, we don't know, all of what we're going to deliver. However, we know enough about our scope in order to say within this scope, we're going to take a plan-driven or a predictive approach. Not all scope, but a portion of it. We also are then going to learn about scope as we delivered. Remember I said learning is a primary function that has to occur within the adaptive approach. We're going to transition though to the customer at the end of the project. In other words, all of what we're going to do in segments in a very predictive way. Again, managing those tight dependencies and so on and so forth. But in doing so, we're going to learn about future scope. And once everything is completed, then the customer can start getting the benefit of what is delivered at the end of the project. With incremental, we're going to time box things. We're going to put a time box around it. We're going to plan the scope within a defined time frame, and we're going to then adjust and optimize the plan for the next period, again, based upon what we learn. In other words, we're going to try to get as much done as possible within this period. For incremental, maybe you say the period is a quarter, for example. How much do we think we can deliver with these resources within this quarter? And in doing so, we're going to learn about what we're going to do for the next quarter. As you can tell, we're starting to transition to a prioritization method as opposed to a plan-driven method. There still are dependencies that need to be managed, but we are being more adaptive in this approach. But once again, with incremental, the expectation is we're not going to deliver the functionality to the customer or the end deliverables to the customer until the end of the project, when the entire solution fits together. With Agile, we're going to borrow from some of the things that we talked about in iterative, some of the things we're going to talk about in incremental, but what we're going to do is we're going to shorten the duration of the increments. We're going to shorten that duration to 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe a month at the most. And what we're going to do is we're going to want customer collaboration continuously. And the reason for that is because we need to learn that much more. In other words, the uniqueness is there. We're less experienced with delivering these sorts of things. And we're going to learn quickly so we can adapt. That's why we have those shorter durations. Likewise, we're going to reprioritize with each successive increment. In other words, take what we learned in each increment and reprioritize based upon what we now know. The customer, though, the advantage of this is because we're delivering working product regularly during Agile, the customer is going to be able to start taking benefit during the life cycle of the project because they're seeing a working product that is ready to go for a release. One of the key things within Agile is we do releases of our working approved product at regular intervals during the project lifecycle. Value realization can start happening. In other words, we can start gaining the benefit of what we've delivered. Now, as you can tell from what we've just discussed, some of these have, we're kind of plan-driven in the predictive approach and in some respects in the iterative approach, but even in the iterative approach, we are adapting somewhat. Okay. Now, Agile is the best adaptive delivery mechanism because it helps you to learn regularly and prioritize. The good news with Agile is, as I've discussed, we want to try to get towards routine as much as we possibly can. We want to take that which is chaotic and move towards routine. We do that best with Agile because we learn more frequently. And that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of this video series. However, Agile is more than a life cycle. It is primarily applied to software development projects, but it can also apply to other situations where there's a lot of unknowns as well. Again, if you want to move towards routine as quickly as possible, you can do that with Agile. It draws on the need for a variety of inputs and perspectives. We want everybody working together on the same thing in order to make sure all perspectives are applied universally to ensure the best working product so that it can be released. Now, this is characterized in the Scrum Guide, which you can find at scrum.org. It's characterized by teams that are self-organizing, self-directing, self-correcting, and I've added one that's not in the Scrum Guide that I like myself, which is self-recognizing. We'll talk about that more when we get to the Scrum. What the Scrum Guide says is we're going to be transparent in what we're going to deliver. We're going to have visibility into the work. That enables you to inspect. The more you see, the more you can see if there is variances that we don't want. In other words, we're learning as we go, and as we go, we're seeing what works and what doesn't work, a lot of experimentation and things like that, so that inspection can enable adaptation, I should say, adaptation, to make sure we are delivering the right thing at the right time in the right way, in control as a project delivery team. It's adjusting to results of inspection as quickly as possible. Speed will naturally occur the more that what we're delivering becomes routine through operating under these principles and practices, which is what we have up next. We're going to talk about the Agile mindset, the values, the principles, and the practices. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you on the next video with the topic of the Agile mindset. As always, you can find us at projectsbydesign.net. We're a full provider of Project Management Institute certification training, consulting for Agile, Discipline Agile, project management delivery systems. Give us a call or send a note to us at contact@projectsbydesign.net. We'll see you in the next video.